Hello everyone, welcome back to another Black Clover mobile video. Today I want to present to you a new format that I thought of, in which I want to talk about the seasonal characters, give you my opinion on them, what I think they excel at, what I think they're bad at, what gear I would put on them, what talents I would choose for them, and so on and so forth. I know I am a little late on this already because we're already in season 2, but I think this could still be helpful for the future when the banner will be rerun and for newer people that are now starting to play the game and maybe picking these characters up at some point. So I will be trying to have these up every time new seasonal characters drop. Without further ado, let's start with the first character. And our first character will be Season 1 Asta. Asta is a red attacker and he is a member of the Black Bulls. He has 17,839 attack, 0 magic attack because he wields anti-magic. He has 4,207 defense and 40,500 HP. The gear that I would go for on Asta would be gold attack, gold speed, and gold crit. Some people might tell you to go for gold defense as well to make him more balanced and just more well-rounded because he's a little shaky with the crits, which I'm gonna go over in a bit. So his skills are, his first skill is Cross Slash, where he strikes an enemy using both the Demon Dweller Sword and the Demon Slayer Sword, dealing damage. And if he has an active buff on him, there's a 50% chance that he deals an extra attack that inflicts 70% of attack. And he grants himself a 2% increased damage dealt buff, which stacks up to 5 times, which is quite good. His second skill is Wild Dance, where he slashes an enemy with the Demon Dweller Sword and the Demon Slayer Sword, dealing damage. It attacks after granting increased attack level 1, and it has an 80% chance to grant himself 20% increased mobility. And with his special skill, which is Accelerated Assault, he performs a powerful strike at an enemy using 2 swords, dealing damage. It grants an extra turn when attacking an enemy whose HP is at 80% or above, and it attacks a boss after granting 30% increased damage dealt. And then his combined attack performs a combined attack with a partnered mate, dealing damage to an enemy. It attacks after removing enemy's barrier. His enhanced passive is it grants himself a 12% increased attack for 1 turn at the start of a wave. And his unique passive is it grants himself 4% increased attack at the start of each turn, which stacks up to 3 times. From reading all of this, it is pretty clear that Asta already is a pretty good attacker, but he does not really excel a lot on crits because he also only has 15% crit rate and 50% crit damage, meaning you are not critting that many times, and if you crit, it will not be too much crazy, even though it's like 1.5 times the damage. But I still currently run this gear on him. I have a 2-piece gold attack, 2-piece gold crit, and 2-piece gold crit damage on him. Of course, this is not completely ideal yet. I am still farming for gear. Either way, for the main stats on every gear, I would go for attack because Asta cannot use magic attack at all. So you will have to go full attack on those. The big piece and the small piece attack, all attack. And his substats, I would go for attack, pen, and if you go for the crit, still I would go for crit and crit damage. If not, just go for defense or HP. And for a more balanced build for him, I would go for a 2-piece gold speed, 2-piece gold attack, and 2-piece gold defense, almost like I show it here. And for the last piece, you can always go for another attack piece of every set that fits. For his skill page has the active effect that it changes his skill 2 to attacks after granting increased attack level 2 instead of attack level 1, which is not too crazy, and the passive does applies 12 to 24% increased crit damage to yourself. And this is where the crits start to get a little bit more viable, because if you have his skill page on 5, that will be a total of 74% crit damage, which is quite a lot. But still, even if you only have his skill page one time, it will amp it up to 62%, which is also quite alright. And then you can still get that up a bit with talents and get some crit rate with gear as well. That's that. Some other skill pages that I would go for is Sea Serpent's Pride. Sea Serpent's Pride increases the crit rate by 7 up to 15%, which can be quite good if you're going for the crits. Or you could go for Sharp Eye, which is a pretty good low rarity skill page, which increases attack and magic attack by 5 to 10%, which you can't really use the magic attack in that case, but at least you're still getting the attack. Or you can go for Breath of Darkness, which is pretty much straight up an upgraded version of this that increases all attack by 10 up to 20%. So also attack and magic attack, which is quite good. And then for his talents, his attack talents, I would go for increased attack, which increases his attack by 7%, Battle Frenzy, which gives him 2.5% crit rate per turn, which stacks up to 5 times. And if you have the Battle Frenzy, for example, and you stack it up to 5 times, that gives him another 12.5% crit rate on top of his 15%, which is almost 30% already, which goes quite well together with his skill page. Or if you want to have it more balanced, you could go for increased attack and sharp mind, which increases his damage dealt by 5%, which then makes him just deal more damage overall. And then for his defense, I would go for increased defense, which gives him defense plus 20%, and endurance, which gives him defense plus 4% and crit resistance plus 2%, and this also stacks up to 5 times. And for his support talents, I would go with increased damage resistance, which gives him a 10% damage resistance, and Mage's Blessing, which gives him a 20% chance to reduce the cooldown of skill 2, which can be quite good because his skill 2 gives him more mobility and also deals quite a lot of damage. And for his usage, positive about Asta, I think he's a very strong single target damage dealer. He can take out enemies very quickly, and that also makes him really good at early PvP, or actually throughout PvP, because he can clap and one hit also enemies that are from the opposite type. And he is really good against bosses because of his ultimate getting a damage increase against bosses, and also he's a single target damage dealer, so he's really good against a lot of bosses. And he's also good for the story mode because there are a lot of Asta fights that you can only do with Asta, and having him to slap in for that is really good. Some negatives that I think about Asta, he can be quite squishy, so if you don't go for defense and instead go for crit, he can die pretty quickly, so make sure to keep that in mind. And his second attack might counter shield, meaning shield on himself. So if he has a shield on him and he attacks after getting the shield, because of his ultimate allowing him to attack a second time, that means he can do 2 attacks in 1 turn, which then automatically removes his shield because then the shield turn is already over. So also keep that in mind when you're using him. And another thing that is negative about him is he relies on pure attack, meaning every magic attack piece and every magic attack substat will be very useless on him, so you have to make sure to not have that at all. And good pair ups for Asta is Charlotte, William, and Finral. Charlotte, because she has a mark, which allows Asta to, when he defeats an enemy, to attack again, which on top of his ulti, which allows him to attack again, is really, really good. And he can just wipe out the whole enemy team just with the mark. And on top of the mark, it also gives a defense decrease to the enemies, so that just deals more damage overall. And she makes sure that he survives longer because she can also decrease the attack of the enemies. William increases his speed, which is really good. William also increases his attack at the same time. And with William's ultimate, he can give Asta a counter attack, which can be very helpful against some bosses, for example, or just in PvP as well. And for Finral, Finral is probably the best supporter for Asta because he's also red and he increases his attack and damage dealt. He also increases speed 2 times in his kit, and he also has a chance to increase the crit rate, which can be really good for Asta as well. And overall ranking for Asta, I would give Asta a 3.5 out of 5 stars for PvP because red is not super crazy right now, gets countered a lot by the blue characters, and just overall there's very strong blue characters. And because of Asta being a single target damage dealer, can be a little tricky to use him properly in PvP. So that's why 3.5 stars. In PvE, I would give him 4 out of 5 stars because he's really good against bosses, but then in other modes where you would rather have a AoE damage dealer, he does not shine too bright. So 4 out of 5 stars for that. And his overall relevance, I would also give him a 3.5 out of 5 because even up until now in JP, I don't think there is a stronger single target red damage dealer than Asta, except for maybe Magna, but he needs a little setup for that as well, and Asta does not really need setup for this to deal a lot of damage, so I think he's really good. The only thing I think that could make him bad is if there's another Asta being released that kind of outshines him, which could happen because Asta is the main character, and I think there's gonna be a lot of Astas to come. He also gets a little outshined by some other characters later on, just in terms of usability, and that's why only 3.5 out of 5. Then, next character that I want to talk about is Mimosa. Mimosa is a green healer. She is part of the Golden Dawn squad, and she has 1900 attack, 6700 magic attack, 4009 defense, and 71,800 HP. The gears that I would recommend for Mimosa would be gold attack, gold defense, and gold HP. Why gold attack, you're asking? That is very simple because the gold attack set, the 2-piece set, also increases magic attack, and Mimosa's heals are based off of her magic attack, so that's why you would want to have her have as much magic attack as possible. And since that set also increases magic attack, that is really good for her. And the other two sets are just there to help her to survive longer because she's a healer. So for Mimosa's skills, her skill 1 is Plant Energy. She fires a magic bullet imbued with plant energy at an enemy dealing damage. This grants the ally with the lowest HP recovery equal to 120% of magic attack, and it has a 45 chance to grant SP plus 1 to the ally whose HP has been recovered. Then with her skill 2, Flower Garden, she creates a flower garden around herself, recovering all allies' HP. It grants every ally HP recovery equal to 120% of magic attack. Also, it grants an extended buff duration by 1 turn to a designated ally, and it grants all allies increased damage resistance level 2 for 2 turns. And with her special skill, she uses a huge flower that radiates a healing aura to grant all allies HP recovery and a buff. It grants all allies HP recovery equal to 180% magic attack, grants all allies increased defense level 2 for 2 turns, and it also resurrects an ally and recovers that ally's HP by 30%. So she has a resurrect, and she is up to this day the only character that actually has a resurrect skill. And with her combined attack, she grants the partnered mage increased attack level 5 and a 50% chance to grant the partnered mage SP plus 1, which can be really, really good for normal or for attackers that use the attack stat mainly. And her enhanced passive, it grants her a 5% reduced damage taken, and her unique passive restores 50% HP of the ally that is revived by the special skill. For her gear, I personally would go for a 2-piece speed set, 2-piece attack set, and 2-piece gold defense set, just to make her heals stronger and make them more consistent as well. And with every piece, I would go for magic attack main stats, and for substats, I would also go for magic attack, defense, HP, and damage resistance. And for the last extra piece, I would also just go for a piece that gives her magic attack, whatever you have left over and is good. And for her skill page has the active effect that her skill 2 gets the extended buff duration by 2 turns instead of 1 turn, which is not that crazy. And the passive effect has a 20 to 25% chance of removing 1 debuff from all allies upon using skill 2. Other skill pages that I can recommend on Mimosa is Crimson She-Leopard. Crimson She-Leopard increases the HP recovery by 7 up to 15%. Another one that is also okay is Royal Family's Respect, which increases the magic attack by 10 up to 18% upon using skill 2. This works alright on Mimosa because her heals are based off of her magic attack, so this can work quite alright. And another thing that can also work is Gentle Compassion, which is basically just a worse version of Crimson She-Leopard, which increases HP recovery by 5 up to 10%. And that just going to make her heals better in general. And for her talents, for her attack talents, I would go with increased magic attack, which increases magic attack by 7%, obviously, because that's going to make her heals stronger. Then I would just go with Battle Frenzy or Ferocity. Battle Frenzy increasing her crit rate by 2.5% per turn, stacks up to 5 times, or Ferocity, which increases her damage by 10% against bosses. This is a little useless, but you can only use the ones that are right next to this one, and the increased magic attack is definitely the best one for her. Then for her defense talents, I would go for increased defense, which gives her defense plus 20% as well, and endurance, which gives her defense plus 4% and crit resistance plus 2% per turn, which also stacks up 5 times. And for her support talents, I would go with increased damage resistance, which increases the damage resistance by 10%, and Mage's Blessing, which has a 20% chance to reduce skill 2 cooldown. Or you could also go with Resolution and increase HP recovery received. Resolution being that she will be immune to debuffs when she blocks the damage. And her usage, I think, very positive is the revive. She's the only character that has revive at all up until now, even in JP. She is the best and only green healer at the moment, so she's the best option for green teams. And I think she's really good for PvP and PvE. Negatives, I think she gets targeted a lot in PvP, so pretty much every time you have her in your team, she will get targeted first because of the revive. And another thing that I don't really like too much, but this is more my personal opinion, that she heals based on her magic attack. I prefer healers that heal with HP because I think I like to use magic attack more on my attackers first. And then, especially when you're low on gear or you don't have a lot of gear in the beginning, it's kind of hard to equip that to the healer. And then another thing that I think is a little bit negative is that green is not super important at the moment and throughout, because the sets that you get with the through the green teams are probably the most irrelevant of all, and also green just isn't doesn't have super strong characters at the moment in global at least. And then good pair ups for Mimosa would be Season 1 Asta, Rades, and Valtos, in my opinion. Season 1 Asta because she increases her attack, even like when you pair them up with the combo skill, she increases his attack by a lot. Also increases his SP, which can be good so he can use his ultimate again soon. And it extends buff duration, which he can really use for when he has attack buffs on him, for example. Then with Rades, because she can extend the buff duration, which is pretty good when you have buffs that defend your team already. And he also increases defense, and they both increase defense, so you can kind of put them both in one team, and you will have pretty much increased defense all the time on your characters, and they just help each other to stay alive better. And then with Valtos, because he is green and he's a supporter, and she can extend his buff durations that he gives everyone, and he increases magic attack, which you would probably not use on her too often, but you can use it if you need a little bit of heal. And because he increases the speed, she will be healing a little bit faster. That's it for the pair ups, and for overall ranking on Mimosa, I would give her a 5-star ranking for PvP because of the revive is really, really strong. And because a lot of people are using blue characters at the moment, she being green is a really good counter. In PvE, I would give her 4 stars because she's a good healer, but she can be a little squishy sometimes, and her skills don't match up too well with any other characters at the moment. And like I said before, green teams in PvE are not super important anyways. And for relevance, in total, I would give her a 4.5 out of 5 stars just because she is the only green healer that we have at the moment. She is really, really good and the only character that has a revive. So that just makes her outright really good character and really important even later on up to this day in JP. And we come to the third and last character, which is Yami. Yami is a blue attacker. He's also part of the Black Bulls, and he has 12,799 attack, 3,599 magic attack, 3,207 defense, and 50,000 HP. By the way, all of these stats are their stats at max level, so level 100 at the time. And the gear that I would go for him is gold attack, gold crit rate, and gold crit damage. This is because Yami, in comparison to Asta, has also 15% crit damage, but he has 70% crit damage, which is 20% more than Asta has. So this makes critting a lot more valuable for him. So this is why you would really want to have him crit the enemies most of the time. For Yami's skills, his first skill is double strike. It is a single target damage which swiftly slashes an enemy twice with a wooden sword, dealing damage, and it attacks after granting himself an increased all attack level 1 upon having 4 or more special points. Then his skill 2 is Row Slice, which is an AoE where he deals damage to all enemies with a heavy horizontal slash, which inflicts block HP recovery on all enemies for 1 turn, and it grants himself special points +1. With his special skill, Teacher's Dignity, he hits an enemy with a knockdown attack, dealing damage. That inflicts special points -3 on an enemy, and inflicts total silence on an enemy for 2 turns, which total silence makes them unable to use skill 2, as far as I know. For his combined attack, he attacks after removing an enemy's barrier. His enhanced passive gives him damage dealt +5%, and his unique passive grants himself 15% increased favored damage. So for his gear setup, I would go for a 2-piece attack, 2-piece crit damage, and 2-piece crit rate set, because his crits are very reliable. And for the main stats on every gear piece, I would definitely go for attack, normal attack. This is where you might be wondering, why just attack? Why can't I go for magic attack? And I feel like this is something that not a lot of people know. And I'm not quite sure if the math really works that way, but I think it's intended to work like that, because his attack stat on base is higher than his magic attack stat on base. So if you increase the already higher number even further, because for example, when you have a 2-piece gold attack set on him, that will increase attack and magic attack by a certain percentage. If the math works the way I think it does, then when it increases the attack by a certain percent, then that means you will want to increase the one that is higher already, because percentages work different than just adding to the number. Meaning, if you have a higher base number and you put a percentage on that, then it will be even higher. So for example, if you have 5 and you increase that by 10%, then you will have 5.5%. But if you have 10 and you increase it by 10%, then you will have 11%. So meaning the percentage will be higher the higher the number. So that means you will want to increase the higher number even further instead of the lower number, because then you will get more benefits from the percentages. I hope this kind of makes sense the way I explained it right now. And that's why you want to go with normal attack. And for substats, I would go with attack, pen, crit, and crit damage. Maybe more crit and crit damage than penetration. And then for his skill page, the active effect of his skill page removes 1 debuff. When the debuff is removed, he gets a 50% increased damage dealt. And the passive effect is that it has a 20 up to 40% chance to apply increased special points +1 to yourself upon attacking, which can be quite good. I think from all of the skill pages, Yami's is the one that has the best effect from Season 1. Other options that you could use on him is also Sea Serpent's Pride, which gives 7 up to 15% crit rate, which can be really good with his already high base crit damage. Or you can use Captain's Dignity. Usually I would not like to include other SSR skill pages, but since we got one of these for free, and you can also get one of those for free in the story, I believe, through the puzzle pieces. That's why I am counting this in here as well. But the Captain's Dignity gives 2.5 up to 4.5% increased crit rate at the end of an ally's turn, which stacks up to 5 times. The important thing here is that it increases it at the end of an ally's turn, meaning every time an ally attacks, it will stack up. So that means you don't have to attack 4 times or 5 times with Yami, but everyone in your team counts. So after one turn, you pretty much already have this up to 5 stacks. And then another thing that could work is Breath of Darkness, which gives 10 up to 20% all attack. And since you got one of those for free as well at the beginning, I really like this option as well. And then for his talents, for his attack talents, I would go with Increase Attack, which gives attack plus 7%, and Battle Frenzy, which increases crit rate by 2.5% per turn, stacks up to 5 times. Or what you could also do is increase crit damage and Sharp Mind, which is basically crit damage and crit rate increase, which can be quite good for him. And then for defense, I would go with Increased Defense, which increases defense by 20%, and Endurance, which gives him 4% defense and 2% crit resistance, which stacks up to 5 times. And for support talents, I would go with Resolution, which gives him a debuff immunity when he resists damage. And I would go for increased accuracy and penetration, because it just makes him hit a little bit harder. Or you could also go with Mage's Blessing, which has a chance to reduce his cooldown for skill 2. For his usage, positives about Yami, I think he's very strong in PvP, especially because blue is a really, really good typing at the moment. So he is really strong with other blue characters, which Mars and Lotus are really good, so he pairs up with them quite well. Also, he is a good blue attacker, which is also good for farming at the moment, so farming gear and pretty much every other thing as well can be quite good. And he has a great crit damage, probably one of the best crit damage stats from all the characters at the moment. So that is quite cool to play off of. What I think is negative about Blue Yami is he gets power crept very fast by a lot of characters, because there's gonna be a lot of blue characters coming out that are all kind of strong and just kind of replace him very quickly. And I don't think he is crazy good for PvE, just because I don't think the effects of his skills matter very much for PvE, like reducing the special points and giving them silence. Like, they're still gonna attack you, right? And I think he shines the most with his skill page, which is my biggest issue with him out of all of the 3 seasonal characters. Like, I don't think you really need the skill page for the other two, but he gets significantly better with it. That is my own personal opinion. Of course, you can also play without, but I think that really makes him shine. And some good pair ups for Yami would be Lotus, William, and Charmy. I would not have put Charmy in here. You could also, of course, go with Finral here, but I wanted to at least mention Charmy already because she is there and she does go quite well with him. Lotus, why Lotus? Lotus is also blue, of course, and he reduces the damage resistance on the enemies, so Yami can hit harder. He also removes buffs from the enemies, which also allows him to hit harder. And he also has a skill that gives the enemies concentrated attack debuff, which also allows Yami to hit harder. And then William increases speed and increases attack, so kind of similar to Asta. He just works quite well with that, and he also has the counter. And for Charmy, I just wanted to mention her because Charmy is a healer and she gives him HP recovery, keeps him alive longer, and she also has the effect in some of her skills that she increases special points. And because Yami already increases special points on himself, in some cases, having someone who increases your special points even further can be really good. Also, she's a really good healer, and that's that. And then for the overall ranking for Yami, in PvP, I think Yami gets from me a 4.5 out of 5 because he is blue. He is really good in PvP. His skills are really good right now against enemies, especially with the silence and everything being able to block the enemies from attacking with strong skills. For PvE, I can only give him 2 stars out of 5, to be honest, just because in my personal experience, I did not feel like he was super crazy for farming. I did not feel like he was super crazy for defeating bosses. His overall damage output was a little bit underwhelming for me. I'm not quite sure why that is. And also the effects on his skills are just not super relevant for PvE activities. And so the overall relevance, I can also just give him 2 out of 5 stars because, like I already explained before, he gets power crept quite fast, gets replaced by other characters, and is just not super relevant anymore. Of course, he's an SSR character, so you can always use him, but he just gets outshined by other characters quite quickly. And that's pretty much it for all of the 3 characters. This was my opinion on them, and I hope I could help you a little bit to understand the characters better, to know what to go for exactly in the characters. And if there is anything else that I forgot to mention or you do not agree with, please let me know in the comments below, and I will try to address that as soon as I can. Again, this is all my personal opinion. This is how I would play those characters and what I experienced from playing the game so far. This is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did and this helped you, please leave a like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And I hope you will check out other videos like this in the future. And up until then, I hope you stay kind, stay balanced, and keep gaming. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.